Picture a bustling city right now, like a densely populated metropolis, roughly the size of Singapore.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now, I want you to imagine every single resident in that entire city, all 5.4 million of them, being bitten by a venomous snake in a single year.
I mean, that sounds completely apocalyptic.
It really does.
Hmm.
But that is the actual global reality operating right beneath our awareness. 5.4 million people are bitten annually.
Wow.
Yeah. And the jaw-dropping statistic from our source material today is that snakes are actually the third deadliest animals to humans on Earth.
Which is wild.
Right. They're surpassed only by mosquitoes and, well, other humans.
Which really upends our whole cultural nightmare scenario, like we spend so much collective energy fearing sharks or bears or wolves.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet it's this silent, often invisible creature that claims more lives than almost any other predator out there.
So for today's deep dive, we are exploring the fascinating, terrifying, and honestly deeply misunderstood world of venomous snakes.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
There really is. We're going to dive into the sheer biological perfection of their venom, explore this massive paradox regarding what actually makes a snake dangerous, and look at how just a handful of species dictate public health for millions of people.
And I think it's important to state up front, our goal here isn't to just build fear, but to gain some actual perspective.
Right, exactly.
These animals carry what are essentially like biological superweapons, but they are not malicious. They are just perfectly evolved predators navigating a world where their natural habitats are constantly shrinking.
So true. And, if you are listening to this right now, sitting comfortably on a raised bed or wearing closed-toe shoes or even just living within a 20-minute drive of a hospital, your safety is a profound privilege of geography and modern infrastructure.
It really is a luxury.
We're going to see exactly why that matters. But before we look at the snakes themselves, I feel like we need to understand the weapon they're actually wielding, right?
Oh, for sure. We have to look at the venom itself.
Yeah, let's transition from the macro scale of global statistics down to the microscopic scale of a single drop of venom entering a human bloodstream.
Well, venom is just an absolute marvel of evolutionary engineering. I think a really common misconception is that venom is just a single poison.
Like it's just one toxic chemical.
Right, exactly. But it is actually an incredibly complex cocktail of proteins and peptides that have been refined over millions of years.
That's crazy.
It is. Our sources detail three main categories of this molecular sabotage, starting with neurotoxic venom.
Okay, neurotoxic.
Yeah, so this type doesn't actually destroy tissue or cause bleeding. It specifically targets the nervous system.
Let's break down how that actually happens. Like, what is going on at the cellular level when that hits you?
So the neurotoxins bind to the receptors in your nerve endings, effectively blocking the chemical signals your brain is trying to send to your muscles.
Wow.
It basically just cuts the communication lines. You remain entirely conscious and aware, but your muscles begin to paralyze.
That is terrifying.
It really is. First, the eyelids droop, then the limbs go heavy. Eventually, that paralysis reaches the diaphragm.
So you can't breathe.
Exactly. The chest stops rising, and the victim suffocates simply because the brain can no longer tell the lungs to pull in oxygen.
Man, it's like cutting the main power line to a building. The hardware is completely intact, but there's just no electricity to run it.
That is a great way to put it. Precisely.
Yeah.
Then we have hemotoxic venom, which takes a radically different, much more violent approach.
Okay.
It basically causes the blood itself to betray you.
Now, the sources mention it causes bleeding and clotting at the same time, which just sounds impossible. Like, how does a single liquid do both of those things?
It's intense. The venom introduces enzymes that force your blood to clot rapidly inside your vessels.
Just spontaneously clotting.
Yeah. And your body panics. It tries to clear these microscopic clots, and in the process, it burns through its entire supply of clotting proteins, things like fibrinogen.
Oh, I see. So it uses it all up.
Exactly. Once those proteins are completely depleted, your blood essentially loses the ability to coagulate at all.
That is devastating.
You just start bleeding internally from everywhere. Your gums, your kidneys, even microscopic tears in your digestive tract.
That is just brutal. And the third category?
That would be cytotoxic venom. This one is localized, but it is incredibly physically destructive. It causes necrosis.
Which is tissue death, right?
Right. The venom contains enzymes like phospholipids that literally melt the lipid walls of your muscle cells.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, it breaks down solid flesh into liquid, basically digesting the victim from the inside out.
Why would it even do that?
Well, the snake is essentially using this venom to create channels through the tissue allowing the toxins to travel deeper and faster into the rest of the body.
Okay, let me try to put this all into an analogy. So venom isn't like a crude bomb that just blows up whatever it touches.
Not at all.
It's more like a perfectly coded malware designed to hack a very specific operating system.
I like that.
Right, like a neurotoxin is malware coded specifically to crash a rat's nervous system or a bird's circulatory system, depending on what that specific snake evolved to eat.
Exactly.
And humans just happen to be collateral damage when our biology intersects with this highly targeted code.
The venom absolutely does not care that we aren't the intended target.
Right.
When human biology is introduced to molecules that were perfected over millennia to drop a small mammal in seconds, the malware simply executes its programming.
So following that logic, the natural assumption is that the snake with the most sophisticated, potent malware must be the deadliest snake on Earth.
You would think so, but that brings us to the core paradox of this deep dive.
Which is?
Venom potency alone does not equal danger.
Oh, this is fascinating. The perfect case study for this is the inland taipan.
Yes.
The sources point out this snake has venom so unbelievably concentrated that a single bite yields enough toxicity to theoretically kill anywhere from 100 to 250 adult humans.
It's just massive potential.
One single bite.
Right. It sounds like a biological impossibility. Yet that superweapon is almost never lethal to humans.
How is that even possible?
Well, the inland taipan lives in the extremely remote interior deserts of Australia. Humans rarely venture out there.
Okay, so it's a location thing.
Partly, yeah. But on top of that, the snake itself is incredibly shy. It actively avoids confrontation, just fleeing into deep clay crevices at the first sign of vibrations.
So it doesn't even want to fight.
Never. There hasn't been a recorded death from an inland taipan in recent decades.
Wow, really?
On the extremely rare occasion a bite does occur, usually it's to a researcher or, like a reckless handler, modern anti-venom and hospital protocols easily save the victim.
It seems like our traditional definition of the word deadly is entirely skewed then.
Totally.
Having the most toxic venom on Earth means absolutely nothing without a delivery vector. Calling the inland taipan the deadliest snake is like looking at a loaded nuclear submarine parked in the middle of an empty desert. It has devastating potential, but the actual threat to human life is basically zero. It's a super weapon without a target.
True, but unlike a submarine, the taipan actually has a mind of its own. It's not just an inert object. It's an animal actively choosing avoidance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The danger really requires an intersection of habitat, and the taipan removes itself from the equation. If we want to examine the weapons that are actually firing, we have to look where human and snake habitats aggressively overlap.
Right.
We need to look at India's Big Four.
Okay, let's get into the snakes that are racking up these massive body counts.
It's sobering.
It really is. The deep dive sources highlighted two vipers that thrive in densely populated agricultural regions. First, the saw-scaled viper.
Oh, yeah.
It is very small, only about 30 to 60 centimeters long, but it is highly aggressive when disturbed and has a really unique warning system.
Yes, the scales.
Exactly. It rubs its serrated scales together to make this loud, continuous sizzling sound, kind of like fat frying in a hot pan.
And if you don't recognize that sound in the dark, you step on it.
Because of that simple, fleeting mistake, this one small snake kills around 5,000 people a year in India.
That is just tragic.
5,000 deaths, mostly just from being stepped on in the dark.
Yeah.
Then there's Russell's viper. This snake is perfectly camouflaged to look like dry leaf litter and dirt, which makes it nearly invisible in rice paddies.
And its venom is horrific.
It delivers massive hemotoxic damage, like the kind that destroys the blood's ability to clot and causes catastrophic kidney failure.
Right.
Russell's viper claims an estimated 25,000 lives annually.
When we look at those numbers, 5,000, 25,000 dead, we really have to recognize the socioeconomic mechanics driving them.
Definitely.
These are not malicious, targeted attacks on humans. They are inevitable, tragic collisions.
Because they're hunting in the same areas.
Exactly. Nocturnal predators are drawn to agricultural fields because human grain stores attract massive rodent populations.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. The rats come for the grain, the snakes come for the rats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have impoverished, barefoot farmers forced to work those exact same fields at night just to avoid the punishing daytime heat.
Man, it is just a devastating intersection of circumstances.
It is. But the medical community has recognized this exact pattern and developed a brilliant public health strategy to counter it, which is polyvalent antivenom.
Let's unpack polyvalent. What does that actually mean in practice?
Polyvalent essentially means it's a universal skeleton key.
Oh, interesting.
And creating it's just a fascinating process. Scientists milk the venom from all four of these major snake species.
So they combine them.
Yeah, they mix it. Then they inject tiny, harmless amounts of this mixed venom into a large animal, typically a horse.
A horse, wow.
Yeah. The horse's powerful immune system naturally generates antibodies to fight off all those toxins.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Then scientists safely harvest a small amount of the horse's blood, extract those specific antibodies, and purify them into a serum.
That is brilliant.
It really is. So if a farmer is bitten in the dark and literally has no idea which of the big four struck them, doctors can administer this one single serum.
It just covers all the bases.
Exactly. It has the antibodies to neutralize any of the four venoms.
It is such an elegant, targeted medical solution.
It is.
But the sources really hammer home a tragic reality here. The cure exists, the vials of antivenom are real, but having the medicine just isn't enough.
No, it's not.
If you are a farmer in a remote village, the hospital might be like 4 hours away by foot.
Right.
You might not have the money to pay a driver. The clinic might not even have the refrigeration required to keep the antivenom viable.
It's a huge logistical nightmare.
The venom is the weapon, but the real killer here is poverty and a lack of infrastructure.
A bite that is basically an expensive inconvenience in a major city becomes a literal death sentence in a rural village.
Yeah.
The distribution of snakebite mortality flawlessly maps onto the global distribution of poverty.
Wow, that is a really profound point.
It's the sad math of the situation.
Yeah. Well, we've covered the vipers that dominate the agricultural fields. But the sources then plunge into an even more unnerving environment, which is the snakes that share human living spaces.
Yeah, the other two members of the Big Four live much closer to home.
Too close.
Way too close. This brings us to perhaps the most iconic snake in the world, the Indian cobra.
The source material notes the cobra causes tens of thousands of bites every year.
It does.
It thrives under houses, in gardens, and around marketplaces. But we have to fundamentally reframe the cobra's behavior here.
We do.
When a cobra raises the front third of its body and flares out that famous, terrifying hood, human instinct just screams, "Oh my God, it's attacking."
Right, it looks incredibly aggressive.
Right.
But that hood display is actually the exact opposite of an attack.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It is a desperate, energy-intensive plea for personal space.
Huh.
The cobra is visually signaling, hey, I am large, I am dangerous, please back away so I don't have to strike.
So it doesn't want to bite you.
Given the choice, a cobra will almost always drop down and retreat. It only bites when that clear visual warning is ignored, or, when its escape road is blocked.
Which makes logical sense for an animal trying to conserve its venom for actual hunting.
Exactly. Venom is biologically expensive to make.
That makes sense. But the fourth member of the Big Four completely flips the script. And honestly, I found this to be the most disturbing detail in all the sources.
You're talking about the common crate,
Yes.
the nighttime assassin.
It hunts indoors at night, like it actively enters human dwellings, seeking out small lizards, mice, and even other snakes.
Which is unsettling enough.
Right. But the chilling part is its bite. It is completely painless.
Yeah, this is where it gets scary. We have to look at the biology of why that happens.
Okay.
So a viper's venom is packed with cytotoxins, those tissue-destroying enzymes we discussed earlier.
The ones that melt flesh.
Right. When a viper bites, it burns like absolute fire immediately. But the common crate's venom is almost entirely neurotoxic.
So no burning.
No burning. Furthermore, its fangs are microscopic. They're like tiny little hypodermic needles.
Wow.
So when it bites a sleeping person, perhaps someone who just rolled over onto the snake in their sleep, there is no massive tissue trauma.
Because it's so small.
Yeah, and the venom lacks the enzymes that trigger localized inflammation or pain receptors.
So a person is bitten in their sleep, they feel maybe like a tiny prick, like a mosquito bite, and they don't even wake up.
Often they don't.
What happens next? Like, how does a medical professional even diagnose a snake bite if there's no visible wound and the patient was literally asleep?
That's the tragedy of the crate. Often they don't diagnose it in time.
Oh, no.
The venom slowly spreads, binding to those neural receptors we talked about, quietly shutting down the nervous system while the person remains completely unconscious.
That is horrifying.
Family members will wake up to find their loved one completely paralyzed in bed. Or, tragically, the victim passes away from respiratory failure right there in their sleep.
Just unexplainable.
Exactly. When victims do reach a hospital, doctors are presented with acute paralysis, not a clear snake bite.
So what do they think it is?
They misdiagnose it as a massive stroke or sometimes a rare neurological condition like Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And by the time a doctor finally realizes it's a crate bite and administers the polyvalent antivenom, the neurotoxins have often permanently bound to the nerve endings.
So it's too late.
Yeah, the window to reverse the paralysis is closed.
That is just a nightmare. But, the sources do point out a solution that is almost painfully simple here.
You do.
A cheap raised bed,
Yep.
sleeping just a foot off the floor, creates enough vertical space to separate the sleeping human from the hunting snake.
It perfectly illustrates our earlier point. The tools for prevention are known: raised beds, closed-toe shoes, even just a cheap flashlight for walking at night.
Right.
But they require resources. If you can't afford a raised bed, you sleep on a mat on the floor, sharing the exact microhabitat where the crate hunts.
It all comes back to infrastructure.
Every time.
Well, now that we've covered the statistical killers, the big four, let's examine the snakes that dominate global nightmares.
The famous ones.
Yeah, I want to see if their mythic reputations actually match reality, starting with the black mamba.
The mamba.
The stats on the snake sound totally fictional. It glows up to 13 feet long, slithers at speeds of 11 kilometers per hour, and opens this pitch-black mouth when threatened.
It's very dramatic.
Very. And it is known to deliver multiple, rapid-fire, highly neurotoxic bites in just a single blur of motion.
It definitely holds a terrifying reputation across sub-Saharan Africa.
I can see why.
But if we look closely at its ecology, we see a familiar pattern. The black mamba doesn't actually hunt humans.
Shocker.
Right. That explosive multiple bite aggression only manifests when the animal is completely cornered, surprised, or its escape routes are cut off.
So it's defensive violence, not predatory aggression.
Always. Its preferred behavior is to flee at high speed into dense vegetation or, like, down a termite mound.
It just wants to get away.
Yeah, it is actually a shy, nervous creature that we have defined in our cultural imagination by what it does in its absolute worst, most panicked moments, rather than its typical behavior.
That's a really fair way to look at it. The last mythic giant we have to discuss is the king cobra.
A truly incredible animal.
The sheer scale of this snake is staggering. They can reach 18 to 20 feet long.
Just massive.
When a king cobra stands up in its threat display, it can literally look a standing adult human directly in the eye.
What's fascinating about it is the taxonomy behind its name.
Oh, right. It's not a real cobra, is it?
No, it is not classified as a true cobra. Its genus is Ophiophagus, which literally translates to snake eater.
Snake eater, wow.
Yeah, it is an apex predator that specifically hunts and eats other venomous snakes, including regular cobras, kraits, and vipers.
A snake that strictly hunts other deadly snakes. How does its venom even compare to the big four, then?
Well, on a molecular level, drop for drop, king cobra venom is actually less potent than the inland taipan or the common krait.
Okay, so it's weaker.
Technically, yes, but it compensates with sheer volume. A king cobra has massive venom glands.
Oh, I bet.
It delivers such an overwhelming quantity of venom in a single bite, like up to 1/4 of an ounce, that it simply floods the victim's nervous system.
1/4 of an ounce of venom in one bite.
Yeah. Yet the paradox holds true again here.
Right.
Despite its massive size and staggering venom yield, the king cobra rarely kills humans.
Because of its ecology again.
Exactly. Unlike the big four, which thrive in agricultural and urban overlap, the king cobra requires deep primary forests away from dense human populations just to survive.
So they aren't bumping into people very often.
Right. The big four are deadly because their food source brings them into our homes and farms. The mythic giants are terrifying to look at, but their geography naturally separates them from us.
Let's pull all of this together. We started by looking at venom as this perfect molecular malware, and we quickly realized that our traditional understanding of the word deadly is deeply flawed.
So flawed.
Raw venom toxicity isn't what drives the massive global death toll. The real danger is the tragic intersection of biology, human agricultural expansion, and deep-seated poverty.
I could have said it better. These animals are not monsters hiding in the dark waiting to strike us.
Right.
They are perfectly evolved predators, navigating the exact same survival struggle as every other organism, just trying to exist in a world where humans are constantly encroaching on their territory.
So wherever you are right now, as you're listening, take a moment to appreciate the sheer luck of your geography.
Seriously.
If you get to go to sleep tonight on a raised bed in a sealed house without giving a single thought to what might be slithering across the floor, recognize that privilege.
It's a big deal.
You are insulated from an invisible danger that plagues millions of people every single year.
And I'd like to leave you with one final lingering thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
We spent a lot of time today discussing the extreme, terrifying precision of these toxins. How hemotoxins and neurotoxins have evolved over millions of years to target mammalian biological systems. Our nervous systems, our blood with this microscopic, flawless accuracy.
Right, the malware.
Exactly. But consider this. What if the deadliest weapon in nature is actually the ultimate medical key?
Oh, wow.
If these venom molecules are perfectly designed to seek out and bind to very specific receptors in the human body to shut them down, scientists can decode them.
To reverse engineer them.
Yes, the very substances that cause catastrophic bleeding or paralysis currently hold the blueprints for revolutionary new medicines.
That is incredible to think about.
If we can understand how a molecule perfectly turns a biological system off, we might just find the exact key needed to turn a failing system back on, to heal it.